Hey guys, this is Chris from Deus Ex Machina, and obviously I'm recording these all in one sitting, so I'm wearing the same shirt, but whatever. I'm talking about the top moments of gaming in my life as a GM or as a player, mostly as a GM. He's talking about my history of tabletop role playing, talking about my favorite moments. Sometimes these moments are quick battles, and sometimes these are month-long sessions, multiple sessions in my game. Most of these are about games that I've run. One was a game where I was a player. Let's get right into it and talk about some of these great moments of my gaming history. Starting with number 10, landing in a surreal colony. I've talked about at length about this game called Pathfinder. I ran in the mid 90s. This has nothing to do with the fantasy version of Pathfinder. I said it is a variant of Firefly. The biggest thing with mine is in Firefly. Firefly is set in one star system with a lot of planets and hundreds of moons. Mine was set across a spanning interstellar empire, so players had a ship and they would go into hibernatic suspension because journeys could take weeks. But I had one player that refused, and I let him do it from a role playing perspective. He said he doesn't trust being in hibernatic suspension. I think it was because his story was the fact that he was found in a colony and he was basically 100 years old and he didn't want to waste his life away, so he spends it reading and tweaking and working on the ship and so forth. And so everyone sleeps and he just does things by himself, and I let him do it. But I decided to have some fun one time. And so he goes, I'm trying to remember how this worked. There was actually several moments of players emerging out of cryosleep without, with something strange happening. I made it almost a weekly occurrence that they would wake up from cryosleep and something weird happened. But there was one time when this player who stays up, is walking by, and he walks by a window. And I just say, you walk by a window, green fields, blue sky, and you walk on, and he stops and says, like, I'm sorry, what? And he steps backward and looks out the window. And that's when he realizes that at some point, their spaceship has somehow soft landed perfectly without noise on an Earth-like world. Green grass, blue sky, water, birds in the sky. And he stares at it. This is a player reaction. He stares at it like for about 15 seconds. He's like, what the? This is not right. He doesn't say anything. He just stares at it. It's like, okay. I go to cryogenics. He goes to cryogenics, goes to the players, and he just turns off all their suspensions to wake them up early. And of course, all the players, it's just like any other thing you see in Aliens. People wake up and they're groggy and they're a mess. And I mentioned this character named Riordan. McKinnon wakes up and he's like an angry morning person. He gets up and he role plays this. He gets up, he slams it. He was like, I need my coffee. He doesn't. And the other player who has been up tries to tell him, is like, we have a situation. He's like, and he's like going out and he's like, I'm going to go to the bridge because he's a pilot. I got to get everything prepped, and he just ignores him completely, just disregards anything he's saying, and starts just aimlessly, kind of chaotically, just bumbling through the corridors to get to the cockpit. The other player talks to the other characters and the other players, and it describes what's happening. This other Riordan gets to the bridge, opens up the shutters on their ship, looks out and sees green grass and blue sky, and his ship perfectly like just sitting on top of a wheat field. And it just turns around and walks back to the group and is like, where the F are we? And I just remember like it's stage play at this point, because I try to avoid players leaving the room to do something private. So I'm role playing this with this one player. who he role plays this whole thing. He sees the reaction, goes to the wakes up the characters, so the players all know that this is what this guy encountered. So they all wake up, and now they're all playing as if they're completely oblivious. They're going through the rhythm, and so Riordan, the player, just on his own, completely just role plays theatrics about how he reacts when he wakes up, and his refusal to listen to this other character, as he just needs to get coffee. He needs to get to his ship, to the bridge, so he can start the whole thing up, and role plays all of that. They could have just said, "Hey, what's going on? Oh, this happened. Okay, well, let's figure out the situation." Instead, it's this 10-minute sequence of players that are role playing how they wake up and how they respond to such a surreal location. And it turns out what had happened, they had drifted inside. Like, basically, it wasn't a planet. They were on a rotating O'Neill colony, but a gigantic one that was built by either humans 1,000 years ago or an alien species. They weren't sure, but it was so massive that from their angle they couldn't see the curvature, and they literally drifted into it and then got positioned. And it turns out they were actually pulled in by an artificial intelligence that wanted people to populate its colony. That was the whole story, and it got very surreal, because then there's it's a malfunctioning AI, so the weather doesn't always work. The life forms that are existing are not exactly normal looking. It gets a little weird, and then they have to confront this AI in order to escape. But that initial surrealness of them waking out of cryosleep and then finding their ship just sitting on a world and with no indication of how they landed and how they managed to land without just crashing, it was a very interesting situation. So that was number 10, landing in a surreal colony. Number 9, we cannot break into Weyland-Yutani. This is something I talk about a lot, about what players think they can do. I mentioned in a previous video where I have characters that were trying to break into a running train. It's a futuristic train. We know that if they're outside this train, when it passes this certain ring, this ring vaporizes anything that's on the train. So they have, once they get on this train, they have about a 5-minute window to get inside it before they're killed. And the player, even though I made it pretty clear that the objective is to get inside, the players themselves were saying they couldn't. Like, this train has been running for hundreds of years. If anybody could get into the train, they would have. There should be no way to get in on this train, period. And I tried to convince them that it should be possible. And I let them do their intelligence checks. But even when they were doing it, they were getting frustrated because they thought I was almost railroading them to get on this train. Even though they wanted to get on this train, they believed I had to twist the believability of the situation to get them on board this train, which I thought was a very strange reaction. We had another one dealing with this alien moment in this Aliens game. They were on this colony world, a very populated, like one of the core colony worlds, not like LV-426. It was one of